Hey there, welcome to episode 117 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I am your host, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo. We are recording this on Tuesday, May 13th, much later than usual, 9:12 p.m. by my clock. You can probably hear the Vegas holiday, holiday. The Vegas allergy season is coming into effect. Increased winds kick up some dust and who knows what else from the testing of nuclear weapons from decades ago. So you never know. You never know what you're going to get. But my already tenuous sinuses are not liking any of this. So it's apparent in my voice. So I'll apologize for that now. Let's see how far we can get. Speaking of attention, if you are not familiar with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, we are a Nevada nonprofit, 501c3 public charity. We are about to turn 3 years old officially 1 month and 3 days from today. Well, June 16th. It's been an interesting time. We've learned a lot and we are continuing into year 4. It'll be interesting. Fun fact, we did file a 1023-EZ. You can hear that voice, geez. 1023-EZ, which is a lower cost and smaller scale entry into the exciting world of public charity 501c3 determination, and that caps our donations. And what else? There was one other. We can file a 990 EZ electronic paper, the postcard tax return. We've never come close to the capped amount, but starting in our 4th year after the end of June, we'll be in our 4th official year as for our fiscal year will begin anyway. No longer have the caps, and I'm going to mention one of our initiatives. We can actually get that going as a donation driver, perhaps. So we'll see what happens. Not that we couldn't have been doing this already, but we'll see. Hopefully so we are if you're not familiar with our organization, we are a charity and we hope to encourage people. In fact, our purpose, as is on file with the IRS and the world, is to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. So community elevation, civic volunteerism, all volunteers, top to bottom. I myself am paid only in your attention to this episode, ironically called attention. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to, sorry, that the was not edited out. I was changing mid-thought. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes and some links. If you've already heard this part, the links are going to be the same for. There will be an episode perhaps next week about a couple of books that are relevant. We can revisit one and a new one that I just finished about civic tech and the civic tech organizations that are trying to make that happen, and where we fit into that. But in the meantime, no bonus reading today. The same 4 links as always. So let's get started so we can get finished. A summary of today's episode, usually simplified to the chicken and egg problem. Most volunteer organizations will face a similar challenge, gaining interest in something not yet done so that the something can be done, to get done. To gain interest in the next thing not yet done, getting attention is a challenge. The links for today's episode, once again, just like last week, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation a homepage, innovateforvegas.org. That's FOR, spelled out. No periods or punctuation, Innovate for Vegas, and then a period, ORG. You'll find various pieces of information, including our Nevada Business ID. I actually, not quite published, but not hidden, not private. It's not easily found, how about that, from our website, but I have a complete timeline of our legal history if anyone needs details on when we filed our 501c, when we renamed our organization from Code for Vegas Foundation, and so on. So homepage, all that kind of stuff. projectact.info, project-act, ACT, period, info. That's our autonomous cohort tessellation initiative. It's about discovery to enable and encourage connection, communication, and collaboration, mostly between other civic volunteer organizations, but not limited to that in any way. So hopefully we'll have a lot more to talk about. I've talked about this in previous episodes. We'll get it into a state so that it's usable so we can start trying it out. I'm going to refer to it later in this very episode. Next, agileforvolunteers.org. No punctuation, agile, F-O-R, agile for volunteers, period, O-R-G. That is our take on Agile, the Agile methodology from 24 years ago, developed by and for software engineers, software developers. But we are adapting it to anyone, not just programmers, not everything is code. So people, volunteers who would like to volunteer their time, effort, and expertise to work on civic volunteer initiatives, to elevate communities, to make our communities better. So we're using an Agile inspired methodology. It's based on the Agile first principles. We don't stick with the damage done by the Agile industrial complex. So it's not aimed at controlling teams and reporting to upper management. Everything seems to turn into that. So no, we're using the core principles, whole team, continuous improvement. So always be looking at what we're doing and try to make it better to make more effective use of volunteer time, effort, and expertise. And there's some other stuff. It will fit nicely with Project ACT, but it is not required. So they're two orthogonal things that, two great tastes that should taste great together. And finally, Mastodon for Vegas, mastodon.vegas. The idea will be to launch this as a donation driver. So it will be maintained by our nonprofit. It will not be a membership or a subscription service. You won't be required to pay. So it will follow the similar model as used by pretty much all Mastodon servers floating around. But we can focus on the Vegas area, and the work we're doing in our MyMuni and Welcome initiatives can take advantage of the ActivityPub, Fediverse, decentralization. So it will fit into some of our longer overarching plans. So once that gets going, I will have been mentioning it every week for the past many weeks. There will be links to it in the show notes for various episodes, and everything will just work. How cool is that? All right, those are all the links. Let's get started. So not only volunteer orgs have this problem, anyone doing anything new, which benefits or even depends on other people knowing about the new thing, faces a similar challenge. This is why there is the concept of marketing and why advertising is so lucrative. You, as an advertiser, might stand in the way of some new idea getting discovered. If you open a new restaurant or bookshop, your future customers will discover your new spot with some basic understanding what you are offering and what their role is in the endeavor. So once you discover a new restaurant is opening, nobody is going to ask, I wonder what they're doing. I wonder what I'm supposed to do with that, right? You know, bookstore, same thing. There's a core, and the key is to know that there is a new place. You may walk by it, you may drive by it, you may hear about it, you may read about it. Once you know about it, you know what to expect. If you organize an event around holidays to help those less fortunate, as the saying goes, there's usually those less fortunate. That's the saying. There is usually automatic understanding of the solution, if not understanding of the problem. So you don't really need to understand the depths. You just say, oh, we're going to go serve turkey dinners on Thanksgiving. Luckily, nobody's hungry on other days, and so on. Well, editorializing. If you open a new food truck, there is similar familiarity. Everybody knows what a food truck is. But then the challenge is the changing location. So you have to stay in touch with your fans, or make sure that people that want to become your customers know where to look. If you are offering some new service that is not familiar to the masses, there may be a learning curve, and the number of variation continues to increase. So that's where you get it's like the Uber of cupcake decorating. Okay. But it's an attempt to implant in people's minds who don't know about you, oh, okay, so it's similar to something I do understand, so now I can try to understand the other thing, or maybe I'll just go visit and figure out what this cupcake Uber thing is. The more novel the endeavor, the less likely the masses will automatically understand what their role is to play. Do I go get the cupcakes? Do they come to me? How does this work? The Uber of cupcakes, they should come and pick me up. Similarly, with the organization, with any organization, especially one as ours, precisely what we are doing Our initiatives are intended to be community elevating. And so we are open to suggestions which identify places where we might pursue those elevations. Like what needs to be done? We can only identify some things without asking other people. Add the possibility that people might participate in the implementation of these elevating solutions, and we get a rather complicated story to tell, and attention comes at a premium nowadays. So if I can't explain all this in 3 seconds, it's over. So we do have a new normal. Not so new, but internet ads persist and are basically the lowest common denominator. We still have them. The return of the, not necessarily like a pop-up, they're basically an interstitial. If you click on a link, you get an ad, and then you close the ad to get to wherever you were going. So they're still here. They haven't gone anywhere. You can try to block them. They are the lowest common denominator, though. So it is this fact that makes use of them a bit less useful for novel endeavors. Basically, another ad. Probably going to click right through it, get around it, block it completely. If you're trying to do something new and you depend on that attention, static advertising, the classic online ad, is probably not the best way. Not initially. Describing what we are doing in a typical ad is almost certainly too much to grok and would probably be dismissed or ignored completely. I can see that happening. The big trend in these modern times is engagement with influencers and their established audience or audiences. Everybody's multitasking now. So that a conversational advertisement in the form of first-person interactions, illustrative or illustrative, video showing off how something works or tastes, and so on. Here in the Greater Vegas area, local influencers create content daily, multiple pieces of content daily, showcasing foods, drinks, retail spots, pools, events, the strip, downtown, and the list goes on. How to show off a nonprofit volunteer effort in this context? An influencer might participate in a hackathon or a food drive or some part of a project, might have a demo to interact with in an Instagram reel or a TikTok, so they can actually show it in action, or might otherwise be able to describe what volunteers are working on, maybe an interview or maybe a spectator description, how the nonprofit pursues initiatives or other aspects of this effort that do not come across in a simple ad. Influencer time does not come at low prices, though, so that can be a challenge. You're basically purchasing their time and their audience, so all the time they spent, time and effort spent building that audience and then convincing them to engage their audience with what you're working on. I got to be honest, I don't see a lot of the typical influencers in Vegas finding out what the latest startup is working on. It's much easier to aim at the tourism industry, which tends to be more concerned with food, drink, pools, restaurants, etc., all that. So we can try direct outreach. It's a practical method useful to get the word out. We can demonstrate something to the masses, directly and at large, or writ large if you prefer, to potentially reach the aha moment in the crowd. This is the sort of thing that any startup faces as well, doing something new and different, especially if this could be confused for some existing thing. But no, the novelty is the important part. Getting that noticed can be a real challenge. So you run the risk of developing something new, putting it out there, hopefully not in a paid ad, but you get the word out. Word of mouth, you might end up with a telephone game like, it's the Uber of cupcake decorating. Like, wait, you mean there's a car that looks like a cupcake? Yeah, maybe. No, but seriously, if you are not describing or focusing on the novel parts of what you're working on, you may fall into a trap of, it's just another thing that I already know about. It's not interesting, and they move on. So you have to make sure there's an understanding that this is something new. This is novelty. So tricky. That's why there's marketing people. As is often the case, that chicken and egg problem here means demonstrating the thing, whether a software thing or some new device or a service or some other notion, but the thing or the notion needs to exist, at least in demonstrable form. So we need a demo to show people so that they might be interested in working on a demo as volunteers. And maybe the real thing, the demo as a product is a different problem. We can talk about it another time. That's too easy to have happen in the commercial space when time is money. Like, it works, let's sell it. No, it's just a demo. It doesn't actually work. Too bad, we've already got 1 million orders for it. We don't have those problems. Now, how to get this new thing in front of people so that it gets attention. This too is a common challenge, especially among startups or new businesses of any kind, which is where you've got your various demo gatherings, pitch nights, presentations, grand openings for businesses which might have such a thing. If you have a retail location, you can have a grand opening to get the word out, and so on. This brings us back to the core problem, getting that attention so people know to even look in the general direction of the demo or the grand opening or what have you. So even if you have a grand opening or a great demo, if nobody shows up because they didn't know about it, you're back to square one. So are we. With civic volunteers and civic volunteer organizations in particular, our organization being one of those, others around the United States, they're all volunteer, aimed at civic projects to elevate communities, just like, let me fix a quick typo here. Yeah. Elevate communities. And that's in our purpose statement, as I think I already described, to make our communities better. There are a variety of community elevation efforts pursued by nonprofits, nonprofit charities, and maybe even clubs and casual groups of volunteers, and perhaps some people paid for their time. You'll find this in companies that offer compensated volunteer work. So you can go and volunteer to contribute your time, and then the company will compensate you for that time. So they're technically paid to be volunteers. That's okay. That's not a judgment. So getting the word out, though, it can be a complicated collection of outreach, posting in the right places, advertising, sort of similar to advertising, but you want to make sure that the organizations within companies that organize and compensate their employees for participating know about these things so that they can be approved and all that. So you have to make sure you're doing some outreach still. So it's always an ongoing problem to get the word out. So this is not a new thing by any means. Same thing happens for anything. How do you know about the latest fill in the blank if there isn't some outreach, some advertising, some word of mouth? There's a whole variety. You can take many courses or watch many YouTube videos on the topic. What we're pursuing, I didn't write the word we. What we are pursuing is not completely out of the ordinary. It's actually quite normal. Our organization is aiming to, as our purpose statement indicates, ideate, innovate, and implement to make our communities better. See, I've said it again if I didn't say it before. I usually say it at the top of the show, but that was a long time ago now, almost 20 minutes. This means that we are going to invent things, make things, build things, and maybe even continue work on those things into the future to continue making our communities even better. In early days, this will not be obvious to the casual individual, so familiarity helps. Reaching out to peer volunteer organizations may be a good start. Basically, what are you guys working on? That's a common question. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? But if you launch something, then they say, oh, you built that. Okay, now I understand. You're not making cupcakes and you're not like Uber. Got it. Another approach on the outreach side is to connect other civic volunteer organizations in other places to potentially gain some civic volunteer time, effort, and expertise from a distance. So I said connect other organizations. Technically, that's correct, but connect with. But we want to connect them all to each other, which is one of our initiatives. So to connect with from a distance and to elevate civic volunteer organizations in general through engagement and what we could call a cross-pollination effort, something like a national critical mass of local organizations doing something similar together. I can sometimes make a food truck sort of analogy here. Once you go to a food truck, regardless of where it is, now okay, I see how this works. It's not what I thought it was. I only knew about the old, we won't use the words that people use, that there's no roaches. But if you've never been to a food truck before, you might think, oh, I don't want to go to a food truck. Then you go to a food truck and now you know, oh, okay, this is actually quite good. Oh, the person, could be a man, woman, child, whatever. The person that had this idea wanted to try it out without buying or leasing a restaurant space. You can try a mobile kitchen, you can move it around, find where your customers are, where your best locations are. So once you go to one, now you know. So that is true of a lot of things. Now it's not a mystery. Oh, okay, we have open Cincinnati and you're Innovate for Vegas, kind of the same thing. Oh yeah, you appear in this catalog on the Project Act website that shows various organizations and their different projects and how they're connected to each other. Okay, yeah, I've had good experiences with so I'll check out what you're working on. So you could kind of build up a familiarity, even distal, maybe. So we're taking on the challenge. Our strategy is to build things, show them, and shine a light on them. Our first two main initiatives actually focus on developing our initiatives and connecting with other organizations, so that these are fairly vertical and focused on specific audiences with a specific need or needs. But we actually face a similar challenge with a much smaller and more specific audience. So it's the same regardless, right? Reaching out to one other person, external, who has no idea what you're doing, just multiply that to however many people you're trying to reach. But it's basically the same problem. Our other important initiative, I'll talk about this in a moment. Our other important initiative, My Muni, and its sibling initiative, Welcome, are aimed very specifically at improving information awareness, the former for people residing in some locality and the other for those visiting. As you might imagine, we have a lot of visitors to the greater Vegas area, and people do actually reside here. But these are not Vegas-specific initiatives by any means. They fit together and they're addressing two different types of audiences, but they don't have to be Vegas. We can reach out to other orgs in other places to collaborate and cross-promote each other in a perfect world. This will likely depend on how interested existing organizations are in our first two initiatives. Those are Agile for Volunteers and Project Act, and you heard about those in the links at the top of the episode. This, let me fix a little typo here again. Okay, this is the most basic bootstrapping strategy, building the things we need to draw attention from a small group so that we might collaborate on building the things to draw attention from larger groups, and so on. All the while providing actual value to make that attention worthwhile to give. So we're not looking for one-shot deals where people say, oh, okay, I'll come by and check out what you're doing and then I'll leave. So we're really looking for people who are interested in being a part of understanding their surroundings, being a part of elevating or improving them, being a part of communicating that to other people, obviously developing some job skills along the way. A typical civic volunteer organization such as ours would reach out to younger, junior, entry-level coders is the usual path. Usually you'll hear the term civic tech. I think that's kind of a mistake because what you then hear is like, not that we're only working on tech. So when we renamed from Code for Vegas, because somebody would ask, I'm not a coder, or are you just working on code? Like, no. What we're working on takes many forms. So it was easier to move away from code. Innovation can take any form and anyone can do it. So that made more sense. And there's an innovation district here in Vegas. There's an innovation center where we used to have our hackathons. They're trying to make another innovation district in unincorporated Clark County. If you believe the hype, we are the global innovation hub rivaling San Francisco Bay Area. I don't know about that. So using words effectively to communicate just from the beginning, you don't want someone to look and, Code for Vegas, I'm not a coder, see ya. So all of this depends on the attention economy, which can be tricky in itself. And so some of the things we're building, again, and I've had episodes on these already, so you can flip back through the catalog if you're curious. But Agile for Volunteers is about organizations such as ours working with our initiatives and volunteers, because volunteer time is not compensated, not with money, not in a traditional sense. So we have to try to make the most of that. And not only one volunteer, but 2, 3, 4, however many people are collaborating. We want to make sure people know what they're doing, why they're doing it, who's working on what, and so on. So these are some of the essential components of the Agile for Volunteers initiative. And then Project Act, autonomous cohort tessellation. The whole idea is to make it easy to be discovered so that you can find out if someone else is working on something similar. Or as I like to say, maybe on Fridays, I like to volunteer my time on other projects or other initiatives that are outside of my purview. So where do I go to find one that might benefit from my expertise? And that's really not as easy as it sounds. So we'll try to make that a little bit better. These are not necessarily geographical community elevation projects. They are civic volunteer community elevation projects, if you like. So that's where these get the ball rolling. And then once we can construct our initiative for initiatives for MyMuni and Welcome, and then we'll have the rest of the methodology trickle through all of our initiatives so that they're all transparent, whole team oriented, etc. And then ideally, we'll start to build up a cohort of volunteers here locally who take a proactive interest in interacting with the people around them. That's one of the upsides of civic volunteerism at local scope, but then also interact with other organizations around the country. And that's how you build up a network of qualified people who take a proactive interest and who share some of the same goals and methodologies and can tell the story. Just like the food trucks, once you have a good experience with one organization, ideally other organizations that are in a little connected network, and that's part of what ACT will do, is connect these so that they can be discoverable not only by peer organizations, by anyone. So all using open standards. We're not really inventing anything here. We're inventing new ways to use these things perhaps, but some ideas have been around for decades. So hopefully adoption will be a little bit easier. But anyway, that's our plan to try to develop our attention, our place in the attention economy. How about that? So there you go. So if you've heard this audio program, you are already in our attention economy effort. So tell someone else and be curious and figure out what we're working on. Visit our website soon if you are interested in how Agile for Volunteers works. You can visit that. Well, you can visit that website now, but there will be more deployment there. So far, we're deploying it internally so we can try some ideas out. But we'll put it out there for the masses to use and to change if they want. Same with Project ACT, and then we'll go on from there with MyMuni, Welcome, Open Transit, vLocal, Smart Social. The 4 initiative, which is aimed at connecting the people in a locality with services. Think volunteer for, in our case, volunteer for Vegas. And there are a few other ones. The Challengers initiative to recognize and celebrate local people in your community who are doing cool things, especially students, learning, challenging, maybe sometimes winning, but everything's winning in that case. So yeah, we have a lot of stuff that's going on, and if nobody ever knows about it, then did it make a sound, if I can mix metaphors? And that, as my voice is very clearly telling all of us, is where I will leave today's episode. Thank you so much for listening, as always, and be sure and check out all of our stuff, especially as it becomes available, and consider volunteering. And if you prefer, you may consider donating to support our cause, especially as we get the Mastodon server up and running, which will cost money eventually. I mean, if it catches on, it will be more than the free tier will accommodate. But then some other stuff we're working on, challengers and some other stuff that will be completely free, but will be donation drivers. So hopefully people will take notice and we will get some attention. Take care now. Bye-bye.